Okay, guys, let's get right into this. This particular video took me a while to actually prepare, and the reason why is that the document was almost 1,000 pages long. It's a huge PDF that was basically made by a pro-Republican group that is not the specific and definitive voice of Donald Trump. However, for some and quite a few Republicans, it is. Now, this particular Project 2025 is not as scary as some of the things that the Republicans have published their desires to do when it comes to Social Security benefits, such as, of course, increasing the age that you can go ahead and obtain retirement benefits, closing the doors on your likely ability to obtain disability benefits that you've already paid for, and so on and so forth. Now, this video is not going to be very pleasant for Republicans, but to play devil's advocate for a moment, the main focal point of Biden's administration, and I literally had a Biden video ready to go, and then on that weekend, he stepped down to allow basically the vice president to take his place, who just received over $100 million worth of donations. But so I have to kind of rewrite a little bit based off of her background, what she's going to be doing. But the point is, the thing going forward, unfortunately, is that President Biden's and likely the Vice President Harris, their actual plan was to just get rid of the FICA cap for people above $400,000 in earnings. So if you earned, basically $500,000, that $400,000 to $500,000, that $100,000 up there would essentially be taxed at the FICA rate. So they'd get hit with an extra 15 point something % off of those additional dollars above 400,000. Now, here's the problem with that particular situation. I want to make this very, very clear. The problem with that is that this magical, amazing Democrat-based plan has been around since the 2024 election, the 2020 election, the 2016 election, and before that, and before that, and before that. It's something that they promote every single election cycle. It is something that will never, ever pass. So the main thing that the Democrats are going to use to actually, fix the Social Security program is never going to make it out of committee. It's never going to pass, and that's a problem. And here's why that's a problem. There are incredible Democrats who have a lot of brilliant ideas about fixing the Social Security Administration. None of them have the rock star power to apply for and receive the title of President of the United States. Now, as we go through this document, now we're going to switch over to the Republican side. Unfortunately, we're going to have to beat them up a little bit. When it comes to this document, of course, was not promoted and published and pushed by Donald Trump, but there are Republicans who do support it. I wanted to get some summary paragraphs, some summary articles going with this. I did go through and pull every single paragraph that mentioned Social Security, disability, retirement throughout the entire almost 1,000-page document. So this is going to be a pretty in-depth analysis when it comes to basically the Project 2025. We will be doing the other projects, the other options after this, and we do have a video coming up in the upcoming days for where RFK, or rather the Kennedy gentleman, is going to be standing as his potential to be president and what his plan is for Social Security benefits. So with that said, Deborah, thank you for the $19.99 donation. That's absolutely amazing. I see Kathleen Fulton there. Howdy from New Jersey. Excellent, Deborah. I really appreciate it. So with that said, let's get into it. This was a article by Sarah Grillo of Axios, how Project 2025 would change American life. Now, this is a good summary. We're going to be going through the more detailed stuff after this. Democrats have warned of the damage that Project 2025 could do to the federal government and access to reproductive care if former President Trump wins in November. Why it matters. The Heritage Foundation-backed plan would do far more than that. Its 900-page wish list could reshape daily life for millions of Americans if some of its less publicized recommendations are adopted. The big picture. Now, just keep in mind, this is a very Christian-oriented document. A lot of people practice Christianity. However, there are a lot of people who have never read the Bible that practice Christianity. There are a lot of people who don't know the history of Christianity. There are a lot of people who don't know what the culture of Christianity is in the different sections that there are, or that there are many different types of Bibles out there. That's okay, but just realize this is coming from that corner, okay? So just understand from the perspective of Christianity. So if you're like, where did that come? It's from Christianity, okay? Here we go. The big picture. The foundation has been a fixture in conservative politics for decades, and its roadmap for the next Republican administration zeroes in on programs and initiatives the GOP has long targeted, okay? Now, at least 140 Trump administration officials contributed to Project 2025, CNN reports. So 140 individuals on the Republican side have been a part of the discussion with it, which shouldn't be to mislead you to be like, oh, there's all these people that... No, they're all part of these different organizations. Like, that's kind of a misleading comment, but bottom line is when they say 140 former Trump administration officials contributed to Project 2025, if somebody's part of the conversation, if somebody is communicating on a topic, right, and then they get quoted, they get this, or they get that, then automatically, boom, they can boost that number. So that's, in my opinion, when it comes to, CNN, which is, of course, anti-Republican, a bit manipulative, okay? But CNN did make some other good points. We'll go through some of those a little bit later, but they're more generalized points that this article does cover. Trump had publicly disavowed the project. His campaign has pointed to his own policy plan, Agenda 47, and the official Republican Party platform as his agenda if he wins in November. Although there are some things in the official Republican Party platform that I don't think he's going to want to support. We're going to be doing a video on that too. I don't think he's going to want to. He doesn't want to be shoulder to shoulder with that one. Next one. The foundation boasted that the GOP presidential nominee carried out roughly 2/3 of its 2015 recommendations within a year of taking office the first time. Basically, quick comment. Let's go through this. It argues the NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, okay, either be transferring its functions to other agencies or eliminating them directly. The idea of this is it argues that the NOAA must be terminated because its research on the effects of human-caused climate change from greenhouse gas emissions is harmful to future U.S. prosperity. The National Weather Service, NWS, one of NOAA's sub-agencies that produces free weather forecasts and warnings for the public, should fully commercialize its forecasting operations. The plan recommends, so basically privatize. Effectively privatizing weather data could hinder Americans' access to weather data and how the U.S. accesses other countries' weather models, The Atlantic reports. Throughout all scientific agencies in the government, the plan calls on the president to ensure appointees agree with the administration aims, which may allow political ideologues to overrule the expertise of trained scientists. So remember, the big thing here is Republican, classic Republican. So if it's about climate change, or it's about weather getting hotter, or ecosystems, right? They're going to want to privatize that information. Which, to be fair, means that you're going to have different groups coming out with different things based off of who's paying it. Never forget, the people who have the most money, when they say never, Harris or never Trump, that's because they have enough control over that situation to never get more taxes from those people. Diana Fernandez, thank you for the $5 donation. That's absolutely awesome. Awesome. Very, very cool. Very nice. All right, so let's check in on this real quick. Critical federal programs. They're talking about reforming, making it difficult for people to qualify for supplemental nutrition assistance programs, SNAP, food, commonly referred to as food stamps. SNAP is the country's largest nutritional assistance program, serving an average of around 41 million people, of over 10% of the population per month. The foundation also wants to roll back changes made by Biden administration to increase SNAP benefits over 10 years to keep up with rising food costs. To be clear, there are a lot of Americans on food stamps. They were on food stamps before the whole COVID crisis. There's quite a few people who should be on that aren't on, and there's a lot of people on food stamps post-COVID. The economy is crumbling. The inflation problem is pretty darn rampant. And so the problem that a lot of people are seeing is that they have a distrust in the government touching their benefits, whether it's disability, retirement, food stamps, whatever it is. Even the long stretch stuff, right? Allowing insurance companies to manipulate the outcome of how LTD or workers' comp, benefits are then paid to the individual. But what's happening is when the government reports to a lot of Americans, hey, your food's only going to cost you, 3% more this year. And then the food actually costs 100% more in a single year for those particular line items that have label products. People just lose that faith in the government because they don't understand the math that goes behind it. And the math that goes behind it is that they're not calculating based off of products with labels that you trust and love. And they're not calculating based off of giving you the same thing that you had the prior year. Once a category of items becomes too expensive for the calculation, they move you down to the next grouping of items. So instead of getting filet, you're getting a lesser steak, a lesser steak, a lesser steak, a lesser steak, a lesser steak until you're at Spam, right? Your good old chuck ground beef kind of gig. All right. The The foundation wants Trump to tighten the criteria for when states may give people exemption waivers for SNAP's work requirements, which are issued to ensure access to food stamps during times of high unemployment. And remember, the Republicans are all about getting people to work. The reason they want people to work is because then the government has the capacity to reap more taxation benefits off of their work product. They can borrow more money, the more money they have coming in, just like you or I. If we make more, we can borrow more. If America has its citizens working more, then America is making more from taxes. Because remember, we're their payroll, right? We are the thing that pays America. If America was like Bob makes money off of our work. And then Bob can take loans out against what we made that year. Okay. The recommendation echoes a reform the Trump administration had pursued during the first term before being sued by a coalition of states in D.C. At the time, the United States Department of Agriculture estimated that the changes would strip about 688,000 people of their SNAP benefits. You have to understand, there are Democrats and Republicans alike who basically know that people need their food stamps. But both sides know the amount of colossal abuse when it comes to food stamps, record levels, total record levels. So the problem we're facing here is, how do we figure out which individuals are actually causing these problems and which individuals are properly receiving food stamps as they're supposed to, okay? Because there's a lot of fraud when it comes to food stamps. There's no doubt about it, okay? Thank you, Diana Fernandez. I will give Sweetie and Shadow hugs. They're actually Shadow's up with me right now in the third story of this house. I'm making this video in this little corner of it. But bottom line is, yes, he's with me. I'm on vacation. So that's why I have like a different little setup right here. The foundation would also like to make it harder for people to qualify for SNAP benefits if they also receive aid from Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, another federally funded assistance program, which is a lot used for basically young moms with kids. The recommendation would revive yet another Trump-era policy that was never finalized. The USDA estimated at the time that 3.1 million people, or 9% of SNAP recipients at the time, would have lost their benefits from the change. It would disproportionately affect households with at least one elderly member. Yeah, so sorry. It's basically older individuals and young moms with kids that would have been affected with that. Okay, but more so, I mean, the young moms with kids, though, there are additional programs that always go to bolster them, but they don't get enough money. And what happens in America is that a lot of moms will have kids, with a father. And unfortunately, the father will not be an active part of their life, not paying for child support, will be hiding so that they can't get money to go ahead and pay for the children to exist. And the government has always had the stand back policy that it wants the parent to raise the child, as opposed to having to take over the child and then, pay for the child's entire life. So the main thing here is, it's not hard to do a dig at basically reforming these SNAP benefits against the Republican Party. It's not hard. Next one. Eliminating free preschool. We're going to get through these basics, then we'll go to the Social Security stuff. The foundation wants to end another key federal program, Head Start, which offers free early childhood education, health, and nutrition services to children from low-income families. Okay, obviously not a great idea. Okay, so that would eliminate services for the families of roughly 800,000 children, 2/3 of whom are Black, Hispanic, or Latino. It seeks to limit the number of children who can qualify for free school meal programs, while also calling for Republicans to block any effort to implement universal free school meal programs. There are things that our schools need to have. Okay, free food for the kids. Absolutely. Having a trained person there, military training, with basically protection devices to defend those children from any potential harm. Absolutely, right? These are basic fundamental things that we should have, but we don't. We always hear from the politicians them promising to take care of the future generations, our future retired people, right? But realistically, the steps, they don't walk down. They don't want to pay the money, okay? Now we're on Medicaid. So think SSI people, supplemental security income people. Plan calls for caps to how much federal funding states may receive to help pay for Medicaid costs, though it doesn't specify how such caps would be determined. Now remember, when you get on SSI benefits, most states, not all of them, most states will automatically give you Medicaid. So if you get SSI Title 16, they'll give you Medicaid on top of that. That way, as a disabled person, you can get treated. So hopefully, potentially, you don't get worse, or potentially you get better and can go get a job thereafter. The caps would ensure that the federal Medicaid spending does not keep pace with expected enrollment and healthcare cost increases, resulting in a significant cut to the funding over time. It calls for setting time limits on Medicaid coverage and imposing lifetime caps on benefits to disincentivize permanent dependence. Under the project, states would also be allowed to adopt work requirements for people to receive Medicaid benefits and more robust eligibility determinations for people to qualify for coverage. I live in Florida. Florida as a state is very aggressive with rejecting people getting Medicaid who aren't a young female with kids or a young male with kids, that are theirs. Got to add that. Also, an elderly person or an SSI recipient. They do have emergency allowances for those who need emergency medical treatment, such as like a surgery at the emergency room. But the bottom line is, here's the thing. Here's my thing with this. The American population isn't getting healthier, right? We all know that, right? We know depression, anxiety is rampant. It's all over the place. It's really bad. So as a result of this big problem, and people getting sicker and sicker and sicker, and us realizing there are more types of diseases, funguses, bacteria, viruses, etc., that are really pulling people out of what their future functional launch pattern could be. What it teaches us is that not having medical treatment for people equates to more people at a younger age being less likely to fulfill roles in society when it comes to work and creating work product. So I am, and I think a lot of people are, against Medicaid being underfunded. I am one of those who believes that if we have medical care and insurance, we should find a way to pay for it. Because at the end of the day, the most expensive people are already being paid for, which are those who are older, retired. That's right. The retired people, those who are basically elderly, they cost by far the most when it comes to medical treatment. A lot of the other groups that aren't covered would cost the least. So just something to keep in mind. Like, we've already climbed the mountain. Now we just have to climb that little extra peak over there. Okay. All right, next thing, ending student debt relief. The plan's architects propose ending all-time based and occupation-based student loan forgiveness. That includes the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, which allows public employees such as teachers, firefighters, members of law enforcement, and people who work for nonprofit organizations to apply for forgiveness after they make 10 years worth of payments. Biden's loan forgiveness efforts would be repealed, though Project 2025 does not specify if or how that would affect over 4 million borrowers who have already been approved for forgiveness. Okay, so here's the thing. If you work for the government, I can see some wiggle room in the argument there. If you work for a nonprofit, there's no wiggle room. Your student loans should be forgiven. You're never going to be able to afford them. Now, here's the problem. Even lawyers, doctors, accountants, professionals who have the real student loans, not like the kid who's doing gender studies that they always promote on Dave Ramsey and places where they're basically saying, "Oh, I don't want to pay that." They do their classic manipulation tactic of like, why student loans are there and you should have to own up to them and pay them off and da da da. Let me explain. The doctors, the lawyers, the accountants, the professional degrees, not your cute PhDs. No, not the cutesy stuff. I mean MD, Juris Doctorate, the tough stuff, okay? Those degrees, and then of course the certifications thereafter, the further masters thereafter, go to the terminal nth of that degree. Those are the people who can't afford their student loans the most. And those are the people society relies on to keep its people literally moving forward. If you don't have doctors, they're not going to live through the next day. If you don't have lawyers, their businesses are going to crumble and their employment statuses are going to be destroyed based off of people doing bad things. Okay, so look, you got to go ahead and give certain people loan forgiveness. All right. Now, with that said, all right, so defunding public broadcasting. This is an interesting one, too. Project 2025 calls for defunding the Corporations for Public Broadcasting, CPB, which has long been a Republican target. Okay, its $500 million annual appropriation from the government helps support over 1,500 locally controlled and operated public television and radio stations that ensure Americans have universal access to free, non-commercial local public media. Public media has definitely leaned left. Okay, it's definitely played the more lean to the CNN side of things. Okay. You don't see a lot of public funded groups actually being in the middle anymore. It's very rare. There's a few of them, but it's extremely, extremely rare. Okay. Defunding CPB would severely diminish, if not destroy, public broadcasting services in the United States, according to the Booz & Co. in a 2012 report, which added that non-commercial radio and television stations in many localities would struggle to survive, especially with a lot of the radio stations having to face new potential taxes when they play songs. And that's just, let's just be honest here. The media industry, the music industry, only the very top 1% actually make money in it. Your Taylor Swifts, they're going to make a lot of money. But everybody else below the top 1%, they're barely surviving. Okay? All right, now we're going to go to banning adult entertainment. Remember, this is coming from the Christian side, which is very Republican side. Kevin Roberts, president of the Heritage Foundation, writes in Project 2025's forward, pornography should be outlawed. The people who produce and distribute it should be imprisoned. Roberts also calls for telecommunication companies that distribute it to be shuttered. It has no claim to First Amendment protection, Roberts writes, of adult entertainment. Okay? Courts, including the Supreme Court, have long held that adult entertainment is protected by the First Amendment so long as children are not involved in it, and obscene as defined by the Miller test according to the Department of Justice. So basically, have it there or don't have it there. It's an industry on its own. Go look up the stats on how many people look up those websites. They're staggering. It's like trying to ban alcohol. It's not going to work. It's just not going to work. Okay. Now let's talk about basically Medicare. Okay, Medicare. This is an article specifically from Yahoo Finance News. Traditional Medicare, as seniors know it, could be radically altered depending on this year's election cycle. Saturday, July 20, 2024, by senior columnist Anna Herron. All right. So basically, let's go through it. One proposal in a Project 2025 plan developed by allies of former President Donald Trump is to make a private sector alternative to Medicare the default option when older Americans enroll in the federal health insurance program. Because remember, Medicare is in a similar amount of trouble as retirement benefits. Retirement benefits, 10 years, although it'll probably be sooner than that. They will, of course, have their trust funds run out, which means people won't get their full check. They'll get around 75 to 80% of that check that they're supposed to get. So it's bad because most people getting a retirement check aren't getting enough for a retirement check to actually keep them alive and well. Massive inflation, post-COVID has created a situation where, to be very fair with this, people can't go on retirement and have a good time. Their golden era years are more like, dingy and terrible and frankly rotting. So it's not good. Like whatever you want to call it. You call it rusting. You could call it, deteriorating. It's not good. People are basically existing in a room until they die because they don't have the money to go and do anything in their golden years. Okay. The Project 2025 document developed by conservative think tank Heritage Foundation also includes a rollback of regulations governing the private sector alternative known as Medicare Advantage MA. Just over half of Medicare-eligible seniors are already enrolled in MA plans. If ever adopted, these ideas in Project 2025 could limit the choices seniors have for healthcare services. But insurers may benefit. Certain regulations enacted by the Biden administration are undone. One supporter of the current Medicare Advantage regulation, Center for Medicare Advocacy Associate Director David Lipschitz, said insurers would likely embrace an effort to roll back some of the rules that apply to them. From a consumer advocate standpoint, we would correspondingly prefer more regulations and more accountability from plans. And here's the basic thing, okay? The insurance companies, a lot of them get away with what many would consider to be murder, right? They get away with these horrific, absolutely terrible things where every time they go to Congress, every single year, they try to raise their premiums, raise their costs, raise their this, so that they're constantly making more. Which happened, if you go look at the statistics, insurance has become a massive, massive line item for everybody. Home insurance, car insurance, life insurance. It's way more expensive than it used to be, okay? Food and insurance. Those are the two, damn, how the hell did this happen? Now, so with that said, one supporter of the current Medicare Advantage regulations, Center for Medicare Advocacy Associate Director David, we went through that. All right, here we go. Now, it is not clear what change or chance these suggestions would actually have with basically grabbing on and doing something as part of this 922-page Project 2025 document. If Trump were to win the 2024 election, he's already said that he's not going to go ahead and follow these things. But the reality is there still will be Republicans pushing for those particular details. Okay. Now, a discussion on Medicare Advantage was also nowhere to be found in the GOP's 16-page party platform. So keep in mind, this is something that the Heritage Foundation did. I reached out to the Heritage Foundation, and they've never responded to me to actually come on the show. That's not a good sign because you should always be willing and ready as an agency that's being paid for by other people to promote your ideas on other channels, even if you have to defend them. Okay. All right. So, however, the Project 2025 effort is run by close allies of President Trump, as they continue to point out. Roger Severnino, I don't know, whatever, who wrote the section that includes the Medicare reform, served as the director of the Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Civil Rights from 2017 to 2021 under the Trump administration. Trump's vice presidential pick, J.D. Vance, also recently said Project 2025 contains some good ideas. It does. It contains some good ideas. Last Monday, Heritage also led a 6.5-hour policy fest at the RNC, with Project 2025 Executive Director Paul Dan saying the goal of the program is to supercharge the privatization. Okay, taking power away from the government, putting it into private organizations, focusing on traditional capitalism. That's what they want. Because when the government takes over stuff, yes, the government becomes very, very efficient at actually doing the things that require the program to work. And when I remember in my MBA, when I was in my MBA before the Juris Doctorate and all the other things, right? When I was in my MBA, they would always say the government was 6 times less efficient at actually doing things when it comes to, a privatized market. So if you had like this insurance company and the government took it over, they'd be 6 times less efficient. Last Monday, Heritage did this big, supercharged party. What worries Lipschutz about Project 2025 is it will supercharge the privatization of government-run health coverage by making Medicare Advantage the default option at enrollment. You have to keep in mind, so to some degree, a lot of this stuff was originally private back in the day, and both the Republicans and Democrats allowed these private, medical insurance places keep raising their prices until it didn't make sense anymore. And that basically is what allowed for this whole thing to collapse and have the government take over a lot of the health insurance options with these, healthcare.gov situations. Remember, that was not the American people's fault. That was the politicians receiving funding from private insurance companies, to allow them to continue to inch up their prices to the point where it just didn't make sense anymore. And then the government had to clamp down and say, whoa, we're taking over this and figuring this thing out. Okay. Right now, traditional Medicare is the default option. Okay. All right, next one. The popularity of Medicare Advantage plans has grown over the last decade because they offer other benefits, such as dental vision care and low or no premiums. That traditional Medicare does not. Okay. So remember, regular Medicare that you pay for, your monthly when you're retired, things like that, it doesn't have some things that seniors clearly need. So they do a swap over. And the swap over is sometimes better for them. And usually the main thing is medication. Medication will nip you in the butt. A lot of these medications for the elderly, boy, cardiovascular, respiratory, neurological, holy cannoli. You're talking like, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars per pill. That's like, how the hell come on, But there are trade-offs. Seniors with MA plans can only get to the plan's network of healthcare providers, which can change from year to year, whereas those on traditional Medicare can see any practitioner or hospital system that accepts the coverage, which is nearly all providers. Everybody is going to be on the breast of Medicare when it comes to the medical industry, okay, for the most part. Yeah, there are little things here, little things there, but every major hospital, every minor hospital is going to be on the breast of Medicare. Okay. All right. With that said, MA insurers have also come under scrutiny in the last 2 years for delaying or denying authorizations for patient procedures or care, according to some providers, as well as not paying for medical services patients received without prior approval. So one of the big problems you always run into with the private market is that the private market builds in a lot of provisions to reject people from getting a certain medical procedure, medical imaging, basically this treatment, that treatment, whatever. We see it especially really bad when it comes to like workers' comp situations, LTD claim situations where, they really, really play the game. Okay. Although look at the SSDI, SSI situation with the federal government. There's also that side too. They send you this doctor, right, for a mental review. It's usually 15 minutes. You're in, you're out. And then we get back a form. Some of it has to do with you. Some of it was just copy and paste crap. That doesn't actually go into analysis, but they claim that they did it and they don't have, some of the time. So they'll say, well, I did this test, and 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 I did this test. A lot of it's just copy paste. We looked at the rotation of their body when it comes to this. No, they asked the person to stand up, lift up their arms, and that was the whole thing. There's no perfect system here. Okay. All right. The practices have forced more than a dozen healthcare providers across the country to dump their contracts with several MA insurers because they didn't pay the medical providers in the last 2 years, leaving seniors enrolled in those plans with a smaller pool of doctors and hospital choices. As a result, defaulting seniors into Medicare Advantage would kind of fly in the face of the existing Medicare statute, which makes a point of emphasizing the free choice of providers for beneficiaries. All right, so bottom line is you have to look at what the options are for Medicare versus Medicare Advantage. Okay, all right, good. Now, here's the deal. When it comes to MA insurers, they may welcome the changes offered in the project. Not only would default MA enrollment increase the number of people on their plans, but the proposals would include removing burdensome policies that micromanage MA plans and reconfigure the current risk adjustment model, among others, which is true, but you got to be careful with those private groups. You got to be careful with them. They'll take an inch and go a mile. Overall, the Biden administration has not been friendly to the industry, Whit Mayo and an analyst from Leerink Partners previously told Yahoo Finance, with a nearly historic level of regulations, many of them aimed at addressing issues with MA plans. Biden was good when it comes to creating a lot of restrictions for MA plans to not basically allow people to be stuck out on the clothesline with their medical problems hanging out there. Okay. But at the same time, that slowed the MA people down. It became less profitable and created its own problems. So, it's both sides of the coin here. For instance, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services established new rules on how much insurers can compensate a broker selling MA plans to make sure seniors are steered into coverage that best meets their needs. Because, remember, the insurance salespeople are going to sell what makes them the most money. A salesman's going to sell, or a saleswoman's going to sell what's in their bag. That's how it works. The agency also changed how MA plans will be rated in the finalized rules around health equity, behavioral health care services, and supplemental benefits that would require more action from insurers. Finally, the agency introduced a new patient risk coding model that will likely reduce how much money the government pays to insurers for each patient. You got to be careful with those because, how much of a risk this person is, how much medical treatment they're going to get, another tricky area. All these regulations cut into MA insurers' bottom lines, forcing some this year to lower their forward-looking guidance. A rollback of some or all these regulations could have the opposite effect on their profits, which means they become more profitable. They'd probably be paying things faster. But what would be the trade-off, right? In my mind, and this is the Lipschitz, in my mind, it very likely means less overall oversight of the enforcement efforts over plans and subsequent consequences for breaking the rules. So what they're arguing is, how much regulation do we put on these Medicare providers or these Medicare Advantage providers, right? So the Medicare Advantage is kind of like your more privatized version. Thank you, Diana, for the $1 donation. Very, very good. That's awesome. Very cool. The main thing you have to keep in mind is that the government is trying to balance interests, right? They're trying to figure out how they can make Medicare better to just have it do its thing on its own versus this other competing group that is basically able to be more efficient, quicker on its feet, and offer more services, more benefits, more programs. So the point is, and I think this is something that, is important here. I think at the end of the day, we have to realize that the government is going through a flux. Democrats are on the Medicare side, Republicans are on the Medicare Advantage side. That's always how it's been. Now, if you are a person that likes private companies, if you like the government staying out of more things, if you like the government, if you like having your own space, if you don't like the government telling you what to do, when you have to do it, what's going on, where you're going, all that stuff, then you're going to go with the Medicare Advantage Republican side. If you're a person who likes the government to control things, who likes the advantages of the government setting up the programs for you, and you just kind of follow the path and you make that direction, you go that direction as a result of it being pre-mode for you, then you'd be on the Democrat side. And that's kind of the two types of mentalities that exist with this situation. Love Pugs. Thank you for the 99-cent donation. That's awesome. Very, very cool. Very, very cool. That's awesome. Very good. All right, so let's see what we got here. Now, I went through the entire document. Search function, Control F. Social Security, disability, and retirement as search terms. I'm going to go through with you, and it's going to take a little bit of time. I'm going to read to you the specific things that this document, Project 2025, had to say for each one of these topics. So you can listen and hear exactly how it's structured. Now, I need to warn you ahead of time. This is not written like an actual statute. A lot of people imagine that these reports are like automatically like the statute, where it's like the legal language and you take out this word, you insert this word. It's not written like that. It's written more as a conversational piece to get people to understand the topics and the projections that they want to go for. Okay, here we go. Page 480 of this 900-page monster document. Social Security. Allow child welfare funding to be used for marriage and relationship education. Congress should adopt the following recommendations from a report issued by members of Congress's Joint Economic Committee. Children are far more likely to experience abuse when they are raised outside of their married parent family. Title II of the Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act provides grants to communities for the purpose of preventing child abuse and neglect. And one of the stated purposes for which the grants can be used is for efforts to increase family stability. However, Congress could change the law to make it clear that Title II funding can be used for healthy marriage and relationship education. Which, to be fair, I mean, there's so much divorce going on. And now the studies are coming out, like, that some of the studies show women not being too helpful in that regard. Women tend to be the ones who create the divorce or start the divorce, right? 70%, and if they're more educated, 90%, which means women are the ones who basically are pushing, promoting, presenting divorce papers more than the guys, okay? However, Congress could change the law to make it clear that Title II funding can be used for healthy marriage and relationship education. Funding provided under Title 4B of the Social Security Act, which provides grants to states for foster care and adoption services, can also be used for promoting healthy marriage. States should consider using some of their Title 4-B funding for providing healthy marriage and relationship education for families at risk of having their children placed in a foster care. Where do you guys stand on that? Do you think our education system should go ahead and have courses or education or certificates on how to not suck it as a spouse? Although that came out kind of wrong. How to be a better spouse, how to be a better individual that is able to provide and balance and receive. And let's think about it. Why don't we train kids how to clean a room or organize things in school? Right? It's kind of like the same idea. Like, these are basic functions. And the reason why I ask you this, I ask you this with an agenda, and my agenda is this: if we don't make enough babies, I'm a bad person when it comes to this. I'm a failure at making babies. Right? I have not made any. I have 2 children. They came from me. I'll show you the uterus things, but they have fur on them. They're doggies. I'm just kidding, but they're adorable. Damn it! And the bottom line is this. Okay. The bottom line is this: we don't have enough children being born. So if you look at the timeline, timeline, right? So old people at the end, new people being born. Right here, people who have jobs that pay for the retired. When you don't have enough new people being born, and this timeline marches forward, right? And it's just rolling forward, and the new people are born. And it's rolling forward, and then the new people are born, and it's rolling forward, right? You just have this timeline, keep moving forward. You don't have enough people working and making money and paying taxes. So if we had people getting into relationships and what relationships should be, and there's a problem right now. Just to be fair, and I'm going to say, and you guys are going to be mean to me about it, but there's a problem right now. Guys don't know how to approach women. Because the drinking thing is kind of passe. Nobody really goes to bars like they used to. Guys don't know how to approach women. Well, some guys do. Some guys approach women. They don't care if they get rejected. And those are the ones who end up with somebody and get divorced. That's how it works. That's the game, right? But they'll walk up. They'll get, they'll shoot their shot, and then boom, they don't care. They get shot down. They don't care. They're on the next one, and the next one, and the next one. They don't care. They're playing the game. They're playing the numbers game. Then you have the other guys who are like, oh, I want this, and I want this, I want this. I want to shoot for that. I don't want to be too greedy on that, but I'll go for this, right? They don't know how to approach them. And women, on the other hand, are expecting them to approach. And then the Me Too movement happened, and now guys are like, I don't want to get sued. I don't want to get canceled. I don't want none of that, right? So now we have a lack of fertility. Low fertility is worse than low T. Low fertility, low F, means we don't have enough people to pay for retirement. We don't have enough people to pay for disability benefits. That's the problem. So just so you know where my agenda is on that, that's the reality of that. Naomi Pierce, thank you for the $4.99 donation. That's absolutely awesome. She said, you're the best. It was an SSDI. We'll try to get in touch with you. 60 years old. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Give me a call tomorrow. No worries. Now, keep in mind, guys, I am on vacation. So if you don't get me, I will call you back. But bottom line is just catch up with me. Page 605, the states. Worker-led benefit experimentation. Workers depend on unemployment benefits to navigate inevitable market frictions and seek new employment opportunities. Like you get fired or you quit or whatever. No, whatever. If you get fired, you got reemployment or unemployment, whatever you want to call it, and that helps you tide you over financially until you can get that next job. That's the whole gig. Cool. All right. But existing unemployment insurance, UI, is bureaucratic. This is the actual language straight from Project 2025. It's bureaucratic, ineffective, and accountable. The outdated system's myriad failures during the COVID-19 pandemic highlighted the need for innovations that respond to recipients' needs. The most promising avenue for innovation is to involve workers and private sector organizations more directly, freed from unnecessary bureaucratic restrictions. Americans take for granted that unemployment benefits must be administered. Okay, now we go to the next thing. The Department of Labor, this is still page 6 of 5, and related agencies, government agencies, but other Western market democracies feature effective and popular benefits administered by non-public worker organizations. So what they're saying is there's other countries out there who have unemployment, reemployment benefits as an option. And those other groups, those other countries, they're saying the Heritage Foundation is like, we should look at them. We should examine them. We should just kind of peel back the thing there and take a look at it. The next conservative administration should encourage UI innovation by capitalizing on a key feature of the system and principle of conservative policymaking, federalism. Okay, state governments already administer unemployment benefits and have broad discretion over the programs. Existing statutory language in the Social Security Act does not prohibit non-public organizations from administering the program, nor does it specifically authorize states to do so. Further, the administration can replace state-level experiments in welfare programs and empower state officials to adapt UI to local conditions and needs. They say in this, I approve non-public worker organizations as UI administrators. DOL should approve, pursuant to Section 303A2 of the Social Security Act, non-public worker organizations as administrators offer waivers for suitable alternatives. DOL should offer waivers from the standard requirements imposed on unemployment compensation by Section 303A and Section 303D of the Social Security Act to the states that propose suitable alternatives. So what they're saying is, they went a little Cody on you there, but what they're saying is, they're saying, look, the states are the ones who distribute these funds. Why aren't there private organizations that maybe people pay into, which first thing that comes to mind is like union kind of stuff, that basically handle the payments of these benefits? Why is it that the states are the ones that are receiving the funds and have full control of the funds to distribute the funds? That's what they're saying. Page 696, intermediate tax reform. The Treasury should work with Congress to simplify the tax code by enacting a simple two-rate individual tax system of 15% and 30% that eliminates most deductions, credits, and exclusions. The 30% bracket should begin at or near the Social Security wage base to ensure the combined income and payroll tax structures acts as nearly flat tax on wage income beyond the standard deduction. The corporate income tax rate should be reduced to 18%. Because remember, Republicans, they want to reduce taxes. Now, other people are going to be like, no, you can't reduce taxes. It's going to cut this. And remember, every time Trump gets on up there, he's like, I want to reduce regulation. I want to reduce taxes. I want people to have more. They can spend more of their own money, right? I want the corporations to have more. I want them to invest more in America. It's just two different ideologies. Democrats, tax, basically set up government programs. Republicans, less tax, less restrictions on companies and people. Let them do their own thing. It's not our problem, right? Okay. The corporate income tax is the most damaging tax in the U.S. tax system, as primary economic burden falls on workers because capital is more mobile than labor. 17 capital gains and qualified dividends should be taxed at 15%. Thus, the combined corporate income tax combined with the capital gains or qualified dividends tax rate would be roughly equal to the top individual income tax rate, 18. So the point here is this would affect Social Security benefits in that basically people would be taxed hopefully less, and the burden of paying Social Security taxes would therefore be less because less money is coming out of their pocket. That's the general theory when it comes to this idea. All right, here we go. The system should allow immediate expensing for capital expenditures and index capital gain taxes for inflation. In addition, intermediate tax reform should repeal all tax increases that were passed as part of the Inflation Reduction Act, including the book minimum tax, the stock buyback excise tax, and coal excise tax. the reinstated Superfund tax and the excise taxes on drug manufacturers to compel them to comply with Medicare price controls. The next administration should also push for the legislation to fully repeal recently passed subsidies in the tax code, including the dozens of credits and tax breaks for green energy companies in Subtitle D of the Inflation Reduction Act. I think what's happening is that companies that aren't really in the green sector, they're claiming all these things that they're doing to be more green because of these potential tax benefits, even if they can access them not now, but in the future. I think the reality that we face is that no matter what, the government is already spending a lot of money and already has a lot of programs set up. So the problem is, where is the chipping away going to occur? Now, a lot of people say, let's just raise the FICA tax. But the Democrats have been pushing that thing forever. They've been pushing it forever and a day, right? Not ever, but, past 4 or 5 elections, that was on the table by some candidate on the Democrat Party. So that's not going to happen. They're not going to raise, who has to pay FICA taxes. So if you earn more money, they're not going to make you pay FICA taxes on top of that. And here's why. The middle class always gets screwed. And the rich are always there going, not me, I wouldn't do that to you. But the rich don't pay FICA taxes because they receive no actual benefit from a FICA tax increase. Now, you could build that in. You could kill off their argument by just giving the rich the absolute slightest of increases in their actual, disability or retirement benefits, etc. But again, somehow they'll waggle it and be like, oh, this is unfair taxation of the wealthy, yada, yada. Because, remember the system we have, the poor that have paid in very little get more than what they paid in, right? And then you get, as you incrementally increase up to people paying in and earning money and paying in more, they get less and less and less and less. That's the reality, okay? But still, to be fair, the super rich could pay more. They absolutely could. There's no doubt about it. They absolutely could. Their yacht might be a few meters shorter, but they absolutely 100% could pay more from their taxes because they play a lot of games with setting up their corporations in other countries to get the full write-offs. Naomi Pierce, thank you for the $1.99. Oh, that's that one, right? Sorry, my apologies. There it is, the $1.99 donation. I super thank you. That's amazing. Very, very cool. Thank you. So let's go into this. This was page 75. Now we're on to disability actual notations for the specific word being used in the 920-something page document that everybody got upset about being Project 2025. Now, making the appeals process work. The non-military government dismissal rate is well below 1%. And no private sector industry employee enjoys the job security that a federal employee enjoys. Both safety and justice demand that managers learn to act strategically to hire good and fire poor performers legally. Because remember, government people, they don't make much per year. But the benefits they get thereafter are whoppers. That's why they call it the golden handcuffs. The initial paperwork required to separate poor or abusive performers when they are infrequently identified is not overwhelming. The managers might be motivated to act if it were not for the appeals and enforcement processes. Formal appeal in the private sector is mostly a rather simple two-step process, but the government, unions, and associations have been able to convince politicians to support a multiple and extensive appeal and enforcement process. As noted, there are multiple administrative appeal bodies. The FLRA, the OSC, the EEOC have relatively narrow jurisdictions. Claims that an employee's removal or disciplinary actions violate the terms of a collective bargaining agreement between an agency and a union are handled by the FLRA. Employees who claim their removal was the result of discrimination can appeal to the EEOC, and employees who believe their firing was retribution for being a whistleblower can go to the OSC, which is ironically what happened to Gail Ennis with some of the whistleblowers at OIG at the SSA. OIG is the Office of Inspector General. While the MSPB specializes in abuses of direct merit systems and the issues that they face, it can and does hear and review almost any of the matters heard by the other agencies. Cases involving race, gender, religion, age, pregnancy, disability, or national origin can be appealed to the EEOC or the MSPB, and in some cases to both, and to the OSC. This gives employees multiple opportunities to prove their cases, and while the EEOC, MSPB, FLRA, and OSC may all apply essentially to the same burden of proof, the odds of success may be substantially different in each forum. In fact, forum shopping among them for a friendlier venue is a common practice, but frequent flyers or filers face no consequences for frivolous complaints. As a result, meritorious cases are frequently delayed, denying relief and justice to truly aggrieved individuals. So they're talking about appealing claims. This is the same thing you hear argument after night after argument after night, okay, about basically disability applications. People always complain there's a bunch of fakers out there. There's a bunch of fraudsters out there. There's a bunch of, welfarers out there. There's a bunch of, moms who just want to stay home with their kids out there. And there are. Who want to file for disability benefits? They are. There absolutely are. They want to file for disability benefits. They want to do their thing. I get it. There's literally dealers out there driving around a C300 on a disability check. I get it. I know this. I know it all too well. I represented every group of individual that exists. I'm talking about the worst criminals to the future seekers that create innovative products for NASA. Okay. All right. So here's the deal. What they're saying is, how do we fix this appeal process? How do we make it faster so that the meritorious claims are more likely to be viewed and adjudicated quickly and decided, so that we don't have a problem going forward with this whole situation? To be fair, it's just there's no simple fix. Real quick, Linda Soto, thank you for the $19.99 donation. That's awesome. I really appreciate it. And that's a big one. That's really, really cool there. So Linda Soto, thank you. That's very amazing. Thank you. I love the little happy thing with the little thingy there, which is really cool. By the way, and I love the little pair with the little happy, holding the mirror. Just so you know, when I make these videos, it's not always a happy thing. We had people calling the law firm today. I think it was just one person, but basically they had set up multiple fake numbers and they kept calling the law firm to mess with the employees. And they were screaming like Antifa-y kind of stuff into the phone. And, it's just, if you have a plan to do that, don't do it, because, to be fair, like, they don't deserve that at the law firm. What the law firm does is process disability claims, day and night, works through them. So when it comes to like people doing that whole like political joust and trying to like mess with them, like another person, if you go look at the thingies in the comments, somebody left a comment that was completely wrong about what I said about DEI. And so then they're like, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. Remember, these are all political opinions of these different industries. And then I'm telling you what I noticed between them and what I think is going to happen. Don't punish employees with your political beliefs where you're beating on these poor, and it's the receptionists that this scammer was basically abusing. All right, so next one, page 338, Reform Federal Education Data Collection. The National Assessment and Educational Progress, NAEP, another data collection currently released data by race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, English language proficiency, disability, and sex. However, one of the most important, if not the most important, factors influencing student educational achievement and attainment is family structure. As education scholar Ian Rowe has noted, NAEP already collects data on students' family structure. It just does not make that data publicly available. Do you think that they should make the data publicly available as to the structure of families? Because you know what the Republicans are going to do with it. The Republicans are just going to go ahead. And to be fair, they're going to show that families that have a mom and a dad have more successful kids, right? That's what they're just going to show. The data is just going to prove points that we need to have better relationships between our adults, creating families, that the families last longer, do better, etc. That's what's going on there. That's the idea. Page 474. Enforce EMTALA. The undeniable reality of abortion is that it does do. Okay, let me read it as it is in super tiny font here. The undeniable reality of abortion is that it does do not always result in a passed away baby. And these born alive babies are left to die. HHS should use EMTALA and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, which prohibits disability discrimination, to investigate instances of infants born alive and left untreated in covered hospitals. CMS, OCR, and OIG should be required. You guys know OIG. You know OCR. You know CMS. Should be required to follow through on these investigations with specific enforcement actions. Again, remember, it's coming from a very Christian place which is a very pro-life place. Okay, not pro-choice, but very pro-life place. HHS should revive a Trump administration proposed regulation, special responsibilities of Medicare hospitals in emergency cases, and discrimination on the basis of disability and critical health and human service programs or activities. To achieve this end, in addition, Congress should pass the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act to require the proper medical care be given to infants who survive an abortion and to establish criminal consequences for practitioners who fail to provide such care. I am curious, like, where do you guys stand on that stuff? I am curious to know, like, do you support abortions? Do you not support abortions? Because, you know, the in the future, right? In the future, women are going to be able to go ahead and click a button or, you know, press a this or do a that and automatically choose if they want to become pregnant. Like, that's in the future. That'll be the reality. It won't be a pill. It'll just be like a little digital screen pops up in front of them. And they go, nope, right? You know, that'll be the future. But we don't have that now. And so, you know, this thing could get farther and farther and farther down the line. And as a result of that, you know, it's one of those situations is it the termination of a living being? You know, and I sit back and I say to myself this, you know, we are right now eating cows all the time. I love meat. I eat meat all the time when I can afford it. I love it. I'll go to BJ's or Costco or whatever, and I'll buy a bunch of, I'll put in my little grill, my little inside grill. Man, the dogs and I will eat steak. It'll be the crappy steak, but the crappy steak is so good. It's got all that fat on it. You just cut the fat off. You'll be fine. The point is, we will get to a point where we just don't need animals to go ahead and produce that same steak. We will be able to literally say, this is the perfect steak. And then with true DNA, complete replication, make that exact same steak again. Right? And then a being doesn't have to die. So I'm just curious, like, where you guys are on that spectrum, because technology is also, it's going to make it moot. It's just, you know, people are like, I don't want to eat a fake steak. I don't want to eat a printed steak. True. And I hear you, but we're going to get to the point where you're going to put that steak in one little box and the other box next to it's going to make that same perfect steak, literally cell by cell. Borqua, Mike, thank you for the $5 donation. What happened to the 2100 Act by Bernie Sanders? Is it off the table now? No, the 2100 Act, well, technically it wasn't. Bernie Sanders wasn't the only one who was promoting that or even really creating that. So the main thing is this: Bernie Sanders promotes and supplies that to the SSA and does it, you know, pretty much every year. That 2100 Act is, to be fair, just never going to pass because of the taxation principles that it has in it. It's a cool idea. It's a great idea. It would fix the Social Security Administration. It's just never going to pass because rich people will not allow politicians to get elected and pass that. So, you know, which brings me to my point, you know, it's like with VP Harris, she just got $100 million plus. A lot of it was, you know, very rich people saying, pick anybody but Trump. Anybody, right? That's what they were saying. They were saying, don't have anybody but have anybody other than Trump. And so as a result of that, there are deals that are made between very rich people giving millions of dollars for basically the election of an individual. Now, that individual who's about to be potentially elected will promote certain ideas that are part of their party. But when they get elected, they will never be passed. Again, they will never be passed. That's why the 2100 Act is just never going to pass, because you can't get rich people on board with it. All right, next one. 475, page 475, radical redefinition. We don't have to cover that one. That's the radical redefinition of sex. Page 482, administrative for community living. We can go through this one. Support. Support care. Physician-assisted suicide, PAS, is legal in 10 states and the District of Columbia. Legalizing PAS is a grave mistake that endangers the weak and vulnerable, corrupts the practice of medicine and the doctor-patient relationship, compromises the family and intergenerational commitments, and betrays human dignity and equality before the law. Again, Christian identity here. Instead of embracing PAS, policymakers should focus on the benefits of palliative care, which works to improve a patient's quality of life by alleviating pain and other distressing symptoms of a serious illness. HHS ACL should survey their programs to ensure that they are supporting the vulnerable persons of age or disability and are not facilitating or encouraging participating in PAS. So what they're saying is for disabled people, and this is what happens. You get disabled people. I had a friend who recently committed suicide, which was a very horrible thing. But the bottom line is this: when, basically these individuals make a choice, do we or should we, if they're mentally unstable or not, should we restrict their ability to take their own life? And that's a tough question. They're saying, let's just give them the medication to make them happy, because obviously from the Christian background, one of the very, very big sins is, of course, taking your own life. Suicide is no go, not good. So bottom line is, I'm curious to hear where you guys stand on specifically the suicide function, because, if we take the religious aspect of it, yeah, we always want people to feel good, but do we want to take away their right to create or end their own life? It's an interesting problem. It really is. Page 496. Okay, let's go through this. OCR should return its enforcement of sex discrimination to the statute framework of Section 1557 and Title 9. Specifically, here's what Project 2025 had to say. Remove all guidance issued under the Biden administration concerning sexual orientation and gender identity under Section 1557. I could just look with this one. The main thing is there was a shift, okay? A shift in basically how we were defining different orientations, under the LGBTQ, plus, and I keep adding different letters to the end of it, under what was existing. I want you to know, way back in the day, with this stuff, way back in the day, when I was practicing with other attorneys and other law firms, it wasn't like, it wasn't what it is today. The way it was back then was there was gender dysphoria. Like if somebody was like confused as to what gender they were, that would be a medical condition. But now the rule is they're not confused. They want to be this. They have the intent. They know they want to go this direction. That's the direction they're going. So the medical diagnostic behavior, and I mean, literally some people were found disabled for, those particular items. So the medical functions, the medical changes that have occurred over, the past 15 to 20 years when it comes to that, of course, from a Christian standpoint, they're pulling away from LGBTQ, opportunities, operations, things like that. I'm not going to go in it because it's not super relevant to this video and the topic of it when it comes to disability, retirement, Social Security benefits, etc. Okay, we're going to skip the pro-life measures. We're going to skip the departmental history. We're going to go over, all right, let's talk about the VA reforms. Okay, this is where I had to say for VA reforms, the VBA, okay, Veteran Benefits Administration. The problem is most pronounced in the disability claims process, which needs more and better management attention focused on streamlining the procedures involving in processing claims and administering benefits. I mean, you could say the same thing about the SSA. The VA must improve timeliness of claim adjudication and benefit delivery. Veterans want the VBA to provide timely responses to requests for benefit support, render empathetic customer service and understandable explanations of those benefits, and deliver those benefits without frustrating delays, weeks, not months. Well, it's really years now for some of them. Identify performance targets for benefits, report publicly on actual performance each quarter, and use these metrics to drive consistent improvement, which is ironic because this is like the Heritage Foundation, but the Heritage Foundation is promoting doing this when this is exactly what Democrat Biden appointee Martin O'Malley, the new commissioner of the SSA, this is exactly what he's doing. So the Republicans are complaining with the Heritage Foundation, they need to make this system better. And ironically, on the SSA side, because the SSA is in such crisis material situation, they have Commissioner Martin O'Malley, prior presidential candidate, governor, right, who is actually doing these exact same things with security stat. Okay, develop a new pilot program called Express 30. Commitment for a veteran's first fully developed disability compensation claim and organize the VBA to complete the first claim in 30 days. Hire more private companies to perform disability medical examinations. Delays in completing the examinations could be eliminated with more external capacity. Increase automation. Hiring additional staff to process claims is costly. It is inflexible and has yielded mixed results. Attempting to change laws and regulations simply to adjudicate claims would be a Herculean effort given their complexity. The best way to provide benefits faster and more accurately is by using technology to perform most of the work, which is artificial intelligence, which is what they're doing right now. The SSA has literally created an entire agency in 2021 that's just working on integrating AI in making disability choices and decisions a faster process. Technology currently exists in the private sector, but the VBA lacks the expertise to use it. This would be more of an organizational challenge than a technological hurdle. although it is a bit of a technological hurdle. I mean, they have to get it to the level of ChatGPT where they can input it, have it scan all the documents, find all the words that are important, basically give you point variances and decisions based off of what likely is to happen with the claim. Reduced improper payment and fraud, about $500 million in improper payments go out each year. With the VA, better tools, training, and management could reduce this substantially, but the rule changes at the departmental level would be needed. So they're saying exactly what Commissioner Martin O'Malley is doing, which is a Democrat pick on the Social Security Administration side. They really need another Martin O'Malley on the VA side. That's the reality. Okay. But that's tough. Think about that. You got to find a guy who wants to be president, who's willing to work day and night to go ahead and prove himself that he should be president. And proving himself to be president in the Social Security Administration is not easy, because that ain't where we normally pick our presidents from. That's not it. Okay. Ambassadors to, specific nations. That's where we normally get these people from. Okay. Family last names, right? Who live in places that I'm not allowed to go to because I don't have the money. That's the people we're talking about. Page 649, the budget. The VA schedule for rating disability, VASRD, has assigned disability ratings to a growing number of health conditions over time. Some are tenuously related or wholly unrelated to military service. The further growth in presumptive service-connected medical conditions pursued by Congress and veteran service organizations, begun with Agent Orange and most recently for burn pits/airborne issues. Yeah, but see, I hear the argument that Project 2025 is making there. I don't agree with it, and here's why. The argument is that, Agent Orange, the side effects resulting from it, and then you further ones and further ones and further ones. Look, let's be fair here. The veteran situation, being in the military, you don't have the same private organization options for like your classic like workers' comp. You don't have that. So they got to have something to cover you for down the line. So as a result of that, that coverage going down the line further and further and further and further, they got to have something to cover for what is considered to be a very dangerous job. There are not a lot of jobs where you are required to know, right, and master the faculties of creating death. That's true. That's true, right? Maybe security guards, right? Maybe individuals who are basically doing military stuff in a private sector, right? That's very commonplace for that. But military, the idea is, for the most part, whether or not you are working on fixing an airplane, buying parts for something else, setting up tents, you've had some sort of training with a rifle to, facilitate death. When you enter into that vocation, the likelihood that you're going to be in a position where you're going to also face death is much higher. Okay. All right. And as a result, you have these different chemicals that they're using, you're put in these situations. And then they're saying, oh, well, down the line, if they got that, maybe it could have been this, maybe it could have been that. Look, when you get that many people who consistently come from the military that all have the same problem, come on now, right? Come on now. It's obvious where the issue is coming from. Okay. Next one. All right. Budget. No. Okay. So toxins, they have led to historic increases in mandatory VBA spending in recent years. The VA has a time phase plan to reassess the VASRD and its ratings for compensation. But this internal process can be slow and laborious, requires Office of Management and Budget, OMB, approvals, and can become politically charged both in Congress and with VSOs. The next administration should explore how VASRD reviews could be accelerated with clearance from OMB to target significant cost savings from revising disability rating awards for future claimants while preserving them fully or partially for existing claimants. So put another way, they're trying to basically make it harder to get VA benefits, which is coming. If you guys are sitting there and you're a veteran, you're like, oh, no, they're not going to touch my benefits. No. The crap show that you see with the SSA getting harder and harder to receive benefits is the exact same thing that's going to happen with the VA going forward. Okay, National Economic Council, NEC. In addition to its leadership, the NEC has policy experts, for example, special assistants to the president or SAPs, who are responsible for developing and coordinating as well as advising the president on specific issues. It is essential that the policy expertise of the NEC reflect the current environment's most pressing issues. Today, this would include, among other topics, taxes, energy and environment, technology, infrastructure, healthcare, financial services, workforce, agricultural, antitrust and competition policy, and retirement programs. Okay. NEC SAPs should have a working knowledge of how the administration can implement policy through the rulemaking process, although it is not necessary that they be experts on regulation themselves, particularly given OMB's role. This will facilitate the NSA's effectiveness in coordinating administration policy. Here's the thing. A lot of politicians do not know how the Social Security Administration works. A lot of the advisors for the politicians of, basically high-level roles, senators, House reps, President of the United States, do not have a great grasp on how the Social Security Administration works. Having policy experts be required to have some sort of training, expertise, knowledge, further learning on how the SSA works, that's a good thing. That's a very, very good thing. Okay. Page 70, overview. Title 5 of the U.S. Code charges the OPM with executing, administering, and enforcing the rules, regulations, and laws governing the civil service. It grants the OPM direct responsibility for activities like retirement, pay, health, training, federal unionization, sustainability, and classification functions, not specifically granted to other agencies by statute. The agency's director is charged with aiding the president, as the president may request, in preparing such civil service rules as the president pre-prescribes, and otherwise advising the president on action. Jesus, the word salad in this thing is, come on now. Bottom line is, this is how they're going to change the code to allow these individuals to better advise the president. That's basically it. Okay. All right. Page 76. Making civil service benefits economic. And you may have noticed there was not much about the disability program in this. There wasn't. There were VA benefits mentioned significantly more, okay, than basically SSDI benefits. Now, retirement is mentioned a bunch, but Project 2025 does not talk about SSDI benefits much. And I thought I would see a lot more about supplemental security income in here. There is that. But, basically that's its own video because that's its own video. We're just putting it there. Okay, here we go. All right. And remember, it's also through reference to other programs that are part of the general understanding of SSI. All right, here we go. All right. Making civil service benefits economically and administratively rational. In recent years, the combined wages and benefits of the executive branch civilian workforce totaled $300 billion, according to the official data. But even that amount does not properly account for billions in unfunded liability for retirement and other government reporting distortions. Officials' data also reports employment as approximately 2 million, but this ignores approximately 20 million contractors who, while not eligible for government pay and benefits, do receive them indirectly through contracting, even if they are less generous. Official data also claims that national government employees are paid less than private sector employees are paid for similar work, but several more neutral sources demonstrate that public sector workers make more on average than their private sector counterparts. All of this extravagance deserves close scrutiny. What's happening is the private sector, they're not making enough. And so the public sector people are starting to catch up. And now the public government, the government workers are actually making on par or similar amounts to what the private sector is paying, because the private sector is just, the country's not doing well. It's not building. It's not growing. It's not succeeding. It's not achieving. Right now, it's in a low. It's not doing well. And you can say it's COVID. I'm not doing a whole Biden thing with this. But the point is, I think we can all agree that from a socioeconomic level, the standard of living is going down. Okay, that's just the reality. And as a part of that, when the standard of living goes down, people can't afford to hire people as much. Contractors to do stuff, electricians, framers, whatever. Okay, so that's the bottom line there. Now, with that said, what they're kind of getting at here is, okay, why is the private market doing so poorly? That's one. Number two, why are government beneficiaries receiving special government options when they're just contractors? That's another thing. Page 77, reforming the federal retirement benefits. Career civil servants, remember, this is not traditional retirement, enjoy retirement benefits that are nearly unheard of in the private sector, right? Because they have specialty programs that are like retirement benefits. It's like another pension, but then they also have rules that do not allow you to go ahead and basically have a windfall, right, where you get everything and all of them, and all that stuff. Although they're trying to get rid of that rule. Federal employees retire earlier, normally at age 55 after 30 years, enjoy richer pension annuities, and receive automatic cost of living adjustments based on the areas in which they retire. And the whole point of that is that federal employees are supposed to make a lot less throughout their life and then get really good benefits at the end. But now it's changing. Now federal employees are getting pretty decent pay throughout their life, even though it's crap. It's still crap, no matter how you look at it. It's just decent compared to the private sector. And then the benefits they receive thereafter are way better than the private sector. Defined benefit federal pensions are fully indexed for inflation, a practice that is extremely rare in the private sector. A federal employee with a pre-retirement benefits well into the next administration. Wait, hold on. No, okay, so hold on. Here we go. With a pre-retirement income of $25,000 under the older of the two federal retirement plans will receive at least $200,000 more over a 20-year period. Wow, that's wow. Look at that. That's a lot. Income of $25,000 on the old of the two federal. Wow, will receive at least $200,000 more over a 20-year period than will private sector workers with the same pre-retirement salary under historic inflation levels. During the early Reagan years, the OPM reformed many specific provisions of the federal pension program to save billions administratively. Under OPM pressure, Reagan and Congress ultimately ended the old Civil Service Retirement System, CSRS, entirely for new employees, which because they were getting a good amount, which counting disbursements for the unfunded liability accounted for 51.3% of the federal government's total payroll. Wow, damn. The retirement system that replaced it, the Federal Employees Retirement System, FERS, which is what they use now, reduced the cost of federal employee retirement disbursement to 28.5% of payroll because they were paying, basically federal workers less for their special retirement plan, including contributions to Social Security and the employer match to the thrift savings plan. More of the pension's cost was shifted to the employee, but the new system was much more equitable for the 40% who received few or no benefits under the old system. By 1999, more than half the federal workforce was covered by the new system, and the government's per capita share of the cost as the employer was less than half the cost of the old system. 20.2% of FAIR's payroll versus 43.3% of CSRS payroll, representing one of the largest examples of government savings anywhere. Although the government pension system has become more like private pension systems, it still remains much more generous, and other means might be considered in the future to move it even closer to private plans. What's happening is the government can't afford specialty government pensions. That's what's happening. So the problem is the government took out and borrowed all this money, and then they printed a bunch of money. So what happened is when they took out a bunch of money, they couldn't afford to pay back the money or the interest on it. And then on top of that, they couldn't afford to just keep printing money. So the Democrat way of doing it is, screw it. We're just going to keep printing money. Let's rock this thing. If we go down, everybody goes down. The Republican way of doing it is we have to cut, not tax people, and cut wherever we can cut, right? To have a balanced budget, okay? All right, so that would definitely affect retirement for a very, very large group of people. And, if they continue to move away from people having these federal benefit or government benefit retirement options, that's going to definitely make people kind of feel what the private sector people are feeling right now. The private sector people are not doing well. They're having to sell their homes that they've lived in their entire life, okay? All right, page 78, reductions in force. Reducing the number of federal employees seems an obvious way to reduce the overall expense of the civil service, and many prior administrations have attempted to do just this. President Bill Clinton and Barack Obama began their terms, as did Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump, by mandating a freeze on the hiring of new federal employees. But these efforts did not lead to the permanent and substantive reductions in the number of non-defense federal employees. First, it is a challenge even to know which workers to cut. As mentioned, there are 2 million federal employees, but since budgets have exploded, so has the total number of personnel, with nearly 10 times more federal contractors than federal employees. Contractors are less expensive because they are not entitled to high government pensions or benefits and are easier to fire and discipline. In addition, millions of state government employees work under federal grants, in effect administering federal programs. These cannot be cut directly. Cutting federal employment can be helpful and can provide a simple story to the average citizen, but cutting functions, levels, funds, and grants is a much more important than setting is much more important than setting simple employment size. So what they're hinting at is do more contractors, have less employees. Simply reducing numbers can actually increase costs. OMB instructions following President Trump's employment freeze told agencies to consider buyout programs, encouraging early retirement in order to shift costs from current budgets in agencies to the retirement system and minimize the number of personnel fired. So basically, settlement. They're literally settling with government employees who have a really good, retirement package and saying, we'll give you this right now if you go away and just go on regular retirement. The OMB urged the passage of legislation to increase payout maximums from $25,000 to $40,000 to further increase spending under the cuts. President Clinton's OMB had introduced a similar buyout that cost the Treasury $2.8 billion, mostly for those who were going to retire anyway. Moreover, when a new employee is hired to fill a job recently vacated in a buyout, the government for a time is paying two people to fill one job. Okay. Page 585. Keep anti-life benefits out of the benefit plans. Some benefit attorneys and pro-choice advocates have argued since the Supreme Court's Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization decision that the long-standing doctrine and Employee Retirement Income Security Act of 1974, ERISA, preemption should block individual states' efforts to prohibit employers from helping employees procure abortions by offering various kinds of coverage under employee-sponsored benefit plans. ERISA should not be allowed to trump states' ability to protect innocent human life in the womb. Congress and the DOL should clarify that ERISA does not preempt states' power to restrict abortion, surrogacy, or other anti-life benefits. So what they're saying here is they don't want, the Republicans through Heritage Foundation, private organizations, companies, employers to pay for basically or have the opportunity to pay for abortions. But just to clarify, to kind of help the Democrat side here, if we did not have abortions, like just across the board, every state, if we did not have abortions, right, the amount of children that have to go on to these, temporary assistance for needy families, food stamps, would skyrocket. And I'm going to point something out, which is an unpopular thing, but it's something you should keep in mind. This is very important, okay, is that at the end of the day, right, so I'm seeing some interesting comments here from one of the things. Okay, so at the end of the day, the bottom line is that when you have individuals who don't have a good parenting structure, right, they don't tend to get the education, the better job, make more money, yada, 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 right? It's a rarity when somebody comes from a broken family and they do well, right? They make movies about that. So the point is, if you did not have abortions, you would have a significant large group of people who would never end up getting that better education, the better jobs, etc. And that number would increase, which would decrease the amount of money that exists in the overall pool to help with SSI benefits, with SSDI benefits, with retirement benefits. So the bottom line is, it's not a popular idea, but the reality is, when it comes to this stuff, the more productive Americans we have that work, at the end of the day, the better the Social Security programs are going to do. Because Social Security programs are funded by tax dollars or specific tax dollars paid to specific trust funds / funds like retirement, SSDI, Medicare. Okay. All right. Equalized retirement savings access. This is page 588. Equalized retirement savings access across married households. The limit on individual contributions to a 401k, 403b, or similar work-based retirement account is $22,500 for 2023. Individuals who do not work or do not have access to a work-based retirement account can save up to $6,500 in an IRA. This individual-based system creates a disadvantage for married couples with only one spouse who worked or with two working spouses, one of whom earns less than the maximum retirement account contribution. To equalize access to tax-free retirement savings for married couples, the limit for married couples in 401k and similar work-based retirement savings accounts should be double the limit for individuals regarding the allocation of work between the couples. I mean, I agree with that. I mean, you should be able to do better with that. I agree with that. Page 591, Congress should provide a safe harbor for employer-employee status for companies that offer independent workers access to earned benefits. Doing so would increase access among independent contractors to traditional pooled workplace benefits, such as healthcare and retirement savings accounts. Yeah, Yeah, of course. I mean, you want employees to, get the most benefits from employers. Yeah, absolutely. Page 606, worker retirement savings, ESG, and pension reforms. They're saying remove, this is the Heritage Foundation, remove ESG considerations from ERISA. Environmental, social governance, ESG investing is a relatively recent strategy promoted by large asset managers that focuses not only on a company's bottom line, but also on the company's compliance with liberal political views on climate change, racial quotas, abortion, and other issues. The ESG movement has focused especially on reducing greenhouse gas emissions. For example, ESG proponents advocate for divestment from oil and gas companies or the exercise of investor influence to reduce oil and gas production. ESG considerations unrelated to investor risks and returns necessarily sacrifice trust laws' traditional sole focus of investment returns for collateral interests. And while the individual investors may prefer to invest in green companies, woke companies, or companies with greater board diversity, and may even be willing to sacrifice some financial gains to do so, the question relevant to the DOL is whether and under what conditions fiduciaries should be permitted to follow this path as well. While Americans are free to invest their own savings however they wish, in ERISA, Congress imposed strict duties on employer-sponsored work and retirement plans as a prophylactic protection of workers' retirement security in general. Recognizing that the unique status of employer-managed retirement savings in ERISA, Congress required that fiduciaries exclusively seek the best interests of plan beneficiaries because ESG investing necessarily puts other considerations before the interests of the beneficiary. ESG investing by plan managers is an inappropriate strategy under ERISA. So what they're saying is, if major corporations are mass investing into, woke companies or green companies or companies that maybe won't have a great return, that is not in the best interest of the employees who are part of the, potential profitability or future profitability of that corporation and the success of it. So, I mean, I still think the employees should be able to vote on what, the company is essentially investing into. But again, not a popular thing because rich people that own the companies don't want to allow the poor people who are the employees to dictate how the money is actually invested. Page 607, we're almost done. This was a huge undertaking. Just a quick thing, a huge undertaking because we literally had to go through page by page of a 920-page document for all of the references to disability, Social Security, and retirement. Page 607, worker retirement savings. Okay, while Americans are free to invest their own savings however they wish, in ERISA, Congress imposed strict duties on employer-sponsored worker retirement plans as a prophylactic protection. Congress required that fiduciaries exclusively seek the best interests in plan fiduciaries. ESG investing by plan managers is an appropriate strategy under ERISA. So basically, they should have to use financial fiduciaries to go ahead and make sure the money is invested properly. Page 608, as the principal retirement savings plan of America's servicemen and women, part of the FRTIB's fiduciary duties is managing the TSP is a duty not to invest in governments that are enemies of the United States. Yet, the FRTIB has repeatedly approved the investment of TSP funds in Chinese military companies and state-owned enterprises. Under the Trump administration, DOL ordered the FRTIB to cease investments in China. However, under the Biden administration, the TSP has made available a wide range of investments in China. So do you think the FRTIBs, which is, we're talking about retirement saving plans for American servicemen, American servicewomen, do you think that should be investing in Chinese companies? Seems a little bit counterproductive. Page 610, improving access to employee stock ownership plans. Employee stock ownership plans, ESOPs, are ERISA-covered employee retirement savings plans that allow employees to receive compensation in the form of equity in their employer business. These arrangements enable employees to formally participate as investors in how their employers' businesses are run. They also align employer-employee incentives by giving employees a greater financial stake in the success of their employers. It's not a bad idea because it puts the golden handcuffs on both parties. It puts it on the employers to do a good job and the employees to stick around and see if their investments will actually work out. Page 611, provide clear regulations for ESOP valuation and fiduciary conduct. DOL should make it easier for employers to offer ESOPs by providing clear regulations for ESOP valuation and fiduciary conduct that encourages participation of employee beneficiaries in corporate governance. while recognizing the importance of financial diversification for retirement security. Alternative view, conservatives believe that it's important for American families to have control over their savings and to be able to hold diversified assets. While ESOPs can be a beneficial part of a workers' and family savings, some conservatives believe that the government should not favor one form of investment over another to make it harder for families to have a diversified investment portfolio. You got to remember too, like, Americans don't have savings anymore. Credit card debt is at an all-time high. Articles just came out over this week that we are at historic levels of cars being taken back from 3 missed payments or more. The amount of savings that people have in bank accounts is at the lowest it's ever been historically since like the Great Depression. So to be fair, you know what I'm saying here. You know what I mean? People don't even have money to invest. You know what I mean? And this is talking about how this should be. Hey, they don't even have the money right now. That's the problem. That's the issue. That's the serious thing here. Page 644. In sum, the VA for a foreseeable future will experience significant fiscal human capital and infrastructure crosswinds and risks. Basically saying their veterans are expensive. Budgets are at historic highs, and with the workforce now above 400,000, the VA is contending with the lack of new veteran enrollees to offset the declining population of older veterans. Recruitment of medical and benefits personnel has become more challenging. Veterans are migrating from the northern states to the southern and western states for retirement and employment. Of course. They're also going to the Philippines. A lot. Thailand. A lot. Okay. Meanwhile, VA information technology is struggling to keep pace with the evolution of patient care and record keeping. Consequently, VA leaders in the next administration must be wise and courageous political strategists, experienced managers to run day-to-day operations more effectively, innovators to express the changing veteran landscape, and agile fixers to mitigate and repair systemic problems created or ignored by the present leadership team. Page 645. VHA enrollments of new users are increasingly at risk of being exceeded by the deaths of current enrollees, primarily because significant numbers of the Vietnam generation are reaching their life expectancy. The generational transition from Vietnam-era veterans to post-9/11 veterans will take several years to complete. The ongoing demographic transition is a catalyst for needed assessments of how the VA can improve the delivery of care to a numerically declining and differently dispersed national population of veterans, a population that is more active, reaching middle age or retirement age, and migrating for lifestyle and career reasons. So what they're saying is, each tragic war and event the military had to partake in, they have to plan for how each tragic war, military participants was affected by it, and then start to ramp up and cater / customize the program for the new group. In this case, of course, Vietnam era is, they're into the passing away kind of sunset era. And now the next era is coming in, which is the 9/11 veterans. Okay. And there's a big gap there, obviously, in time. Page 697. I'm amazed you guys have stuck in there. You're so strong. I am amazed because this ain't easy. We are going through a hell of a lot of information here. This is incredible. Absolutely incredible. Okay. All right, let's go. Here we go. Page 697. To reduce this tax bias against wages, as opposed to employee benefits, the next administration should set a meaningful cap no higher than $12,000 per year per full-time equivalent employee, and preferably lower, on untaxed benefits that employers can claim as deductions. Employee benefit expenses other than tax-deferred retirement account contributions should count toward the limitation, whether offered to specific employees or whether the costs relate to a shared benefit like building gym facilities for employees. Tax-deferred retirement contributions by employers should not count toward this limitation insofar as they are fully taxable upon distribution. Only a percentage of health savings accounts, HSA contributors, or contributions, which are not taxed upon withdrawal, should count toward the limitation. The limitation on benefit deductions should not be indexed to increase with inflation. Employers should also be denied deductions for health insurance and other benefit provided to employee dependents if the dependents are age 23 or older. So basically reducing essentially what can be deductible for employees. I don't know if I'm on board with that one. I don't think they got me on that one. I don't think that's going to happen. We just went through 2 articles. We went through every single citation that included the word Social Security disability, and retirement. That was a massive, massive video. An hour and 34 minutes. Absolutely incredible. The next video we're going to be doing is a lot shorter, and then we're going to be doing a video directly after that where I go live. I need like a 10-minute, 15-minute, maybe even a 20-minute break. The next video is going to be more simple, more fun, more easy peasy, etc. But I want to know what your thoughts are in summary with this document as to where they're at with things. Because that's a, looking glass. That is a shade of glass of where some Republicans are coming from. I want to know your thoughts on it. I think, honestly, they want to make things more efficient. They want to spend less money, yada, yada, yada. Yes, there are some things in there I don't agree with at all, that I stand with the Democrats on. There are some things in there that I agree with them on, that I stand with the Republicans on. You let me know what your thoughts are. I will catch you in the next video. Please remember to like. Please remember to subscribe. Please remember that every Tuesday and Thursday, I'll go live to answer questions for free at night, usually like 10, 11 p.m.-ish, around there. With that said, if you need to hire me for a 1-hour consult where we go through a tricky situation you're having with the SSA, or your transition from work to disability benefits, or you need to run hearing questions with me, any tricky situation that you might have, you can do that. The little contract is below. Also, with that said, please remember to go ahead, hit up Google, go to Google, type in Disability Resolution Law Firm or Disability Resolution Florida. Throw some stars up there. I will catch you guys later. You have a wonderful night, and I will see you in about, I'd say, 15, 20 minutes, and we will do the next much shorter video. Thank you so much, everybody. I'll catch you soon. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Have fun. Bye-bye.